Introduction to Tools. Hello and welcome to this session on Introduction to Tools for maintenance of a motorbike. To begin work with a motorbike, we require a variety of tools. Without the right tools, even easy jobs can get complicated. By using the right tools, we can do our best while performing maintenance of the two-wheeler. Additionally, the right understanding and knowledge of tools and their usage will make you a professional in this field. In this session, we will learn the specific tools required for the maintenance and repair of a two-wheeler. The most common tools used in motorcycle maintenance and basic repairs are spanners, socket wrenches, adjustable spanners and torque wrenches, screwdrivers, pliers, long nose pliers, vice grips, hacksaw, and files. Wrenches are used to tighten or loosen fasteners using screws, bolts, washers, and nuts. First, let's see how to use a socket, ratchet, and torque wrench. Here we have some pieces of metal in the vise to securely hold it. First, we will see how to use a socket wrench. This wrench has a male and a female part. The female part, which is called the socket, is interchangeable. It is selected according to the size of the bolt and fitted onto the male part of the socket wrench. Now let's see how to use a socket wrench. Place a 12 mm bolt through the hole in the metal. Next, turn the nut onto the thread and tighten it by hand. Select a socket that fits the size of the bolt. Place the ratchet on the bolt head and tighten it. You may need to place an open-end spanner on the nut just in case it slips. It is best to pull the ratchet towards you when tightening it. You may scrape your hand if you push it away from you and the nut suddenly becomes loose. There should not be any gap between the bolt head and the nut. Now let's see how we replace the socket wrench with the torque wrench. It is usually in the form of a socket wrench with special internal mechanisms. Each bolt varies in the torque which needs to be applied. In this case, the amount of torque which needs to be applied is 5.5 Newton meters. Set the torque spanner to 5.5 Newton meter for this size bolt. Place the torque spanner on the bolt and place an open-end spanner on the other end and apply torque. When it is tightened, a click can be heard, which indicates that the torque for this bolt has been reached. Loosen the bolt using the ratchet. We prefer socket or ring spanners for this over open-end or adjustable spanners. At times, there is not enough working space and one has no choice but to use an adjustable spanner. In that case, it should be adjusted to the nut or bolt head until it is tight. If loose, it may round the points on the nut or bolt. Now let's see how to use another important tool, which are screwdrivers. Screwdrivers are perhaps the most commonly used tool. Most people have used them at one time or another. This also makes them the most misused tool. Screwdrivers come in different types and sizes. It is important to match the screwdriver to the screw being used. It should not be too big or too small for the job. Most screws on two-wheelers are of the flat or cross-point variety and come in many sizes. The small, medium, and large are the most common. We will now insert a 6 mm screw in the smaller hole and nut as we tighten it by hand. Now we take the flat screwdriver and tighten it. Notice the angle of the screwdriver relative to the screw. They should be in a straight line. Apply firm direct pressure on the screw head. Use an open-end spanner to hold the nut in place if it slips. Loosening the screw, we will now take it apart. Let us see what happens if the screwdriver is not held straight when tightening. Note the distortion on the head and thread area of the screw. The cross-point screwdriver needs the same firm straight alignment and pressure as the flat blade driver. With small thin screws of 2 and 3 mm, it is important not to tighten them too much. Their threads strip easily and they may break if forced. We will now see how to use pliers while working with a two-wheeler. Pliers are used for gripping, bending, loosening, removing sharp objects such as tires, and much more. There are many types of pliers. The most common include adjustable, long nose, side cutters, and vice grips. Do not use pliers on screws, bolts, and nuts except as a last resort. Now let's see how to use a hacksaw. The hacksaw cuts through metal surfaces. It has a blade that must be tight to work properly. It is designed to cut only on the forward stroke with light downward pressure. Use full strokes using both hands when possible for straight cuts. Release downward pressure on the backstroke. Now let's see an example of how to use a hacksaw and file a screw in a vise. Vice grip pliers have a spring to hold an object tightly without exerting much pressure by hand. By placing a piece of metal in its jaws, it can be filed or cut with the other hand. Here we will place a bolt into the vice grip and file it. We place a small screw and nut into the vise and cut it with a hacksaw. Now we will file the rough edge flat with a small fine file. The threads must be perfectly flat and not at an angle. Now we will remove the nut from the screw. This straightens any distorted threads made by the hacksaw. The nut is now threaded back onto the screw. This shows that the cut and file was done correctly. If the nut does not thread onto the cut screw, it will cross-thread and may need more filing. Next, let's see some of the safety precautions to be taken while working with the tools that we have now seen. Do not point a screwdriver, chisel, or other pointed tool towards your body while using it. Saw blades are sharp and should not be handled in a way where they can cause injury. Power tools like drills, grinders, and pneumatic tools and impact drivers can cause eye injury from flying metal shavings. Hence, it is recommended to wear eye protection like goggles or glasses while using power tools for your own safety. With that, we have come to the end of this session. In this session, we have learned that the most common tools used in motorcycle maintenance and basic repairs include spanner, socket wrench, adjustable spanner and torque wrench, screwdriver, pliers, hacksaw, and files. Hope you have enjoyed this session. Thank you.